Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And today we have City Girls Pod back together. Very exciting. We haven't done an episode for a while. I'm not sure how long it's been, but it's been a little bit.
It's been too long. I've missed you.
Yes.
We see that there will be no more Che Diaz in season 3.
Yes. Yes, we should maybe talk about that the announcement it was very funny in the I think it was New York Post or whoever it was that was reporting it was like Sarah Ramirez thinks that it's because of Che Diaz, but it's just that they found their character incredibly annoying. Nobody liked it. And because I guess she'd spoken out against like Palestine or for Palestine or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. And so they had claimed that was the reason that Che had gotten the oust. And the paper was very funny.
The article that you sent me, I was howling because I think there are also other people that work on the show that have spoken out and supported Palestine, and they've kept their jobs. So the fact that Sarah, that they were blaming it on that, oh my goodness, just bless. Yeah. This is a tricky situation. I feel awful for them, but also like Che was so Che.
Yeah. There's the Daily Mail says Sarah Ramirez has officially been dropped from And Just Like That after creators decided their divisive character Che Diaz was a waste of airtime and annoying fans, not because of their stance on Palestine. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. It was tricky.
Yeah.
It was tricky.
And it's not exactly surprising because if you think at the end of season 2, they kind of acted like it hadn't even happened, like the relationship hadn't even happened.
Yeah.
And Che was just like hanging out with Carrie.
Yeah, they're like, can we pretend that this just didn't exist?
Because it was interesting. I was thinking about that this week actually. There's this very interesting book called The 48 Laws of Power. And it's a pretty good read. And one of the things that they say in there is that to avoid unhappy or unlucky people, and that there's certain people that just just have bad vibes, like that you just when you're around them, bad things happen, and of course the trick of it is you don't know that you're around an unlucky person until you're around them, and then you're like, oh my gosh, everything is going wrong. Like, and
how did I get sucked into this vortex?
And I feel like Che Diaz is that kind of character.
Yeah, it really everything that they touched, every storyline just seemed to kind of crumble.
Yeah, and it wasn't Sarah's fault.
No.
She did the job. It was that the way that they wrote her was nonsensical. It did not make sense that someone with her views and desires would be interested in Miranda at all. And then the way that they treated Miranda just didn't make sense. Like I remember when Miranda brings her the cookies and she's like all upset and whatever. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, and so she would be like very possessive, but then would claim to be, they would be very possessive and then they'd claim to be super independent. I don't know. It was not consistent. I think that was the biggest problem.
Yeah, it wasn't consistent. And I really hope that they're going to do a bit of a reboot for, figuring out how to make the show a little bit less cringe.
They need to Miranda in that internship job, and she's got those two kind of catty coworkers and then the boss, stuff that was like made way more sense for like her character and was more interesting. Even her stuff with Brady was better and made more sense. And so that's the right track. That's where to go on, because you have to have characters behave in ways that are consistent with their character.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so it is what it is.
It is what it is. But
guys, it'd be nice if Sarah went back to Broadway.
yes,
they're a great singer. So
yes. Honestly, we wish them the best.
yeah.
Stay far away from Sex and the City for your
Please.
sake, for the show's sake, it's
Yeah.
And we won't get to see till 2025.
I know.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
But in the meantime,
yes,
I thought it would be fun to cover Footloose because Sarah Jessica Parker, little role in here. It's very exciting.
19-year-old Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yes. And this movie, it's appropriate to cover it because this is the 40-year anniversary. So,
oh my gosh, it's incredible, isn't it? 40 years.
Yeah. And it came out in 1984 and was directed by Herbert Ross and, of course, starred Kevin Bacon. And this is a kind of a big deal in Utah, at least, because this whole movie was shot in Utah. Like if you come out again, when you come out again,
when I come out again, yeah,
I can give you the whole Footloose tour. Now you've seen the movie. We can go to Lehigh Roller Mills. We can go to the church that it's all filmed at.
I would love.
Yeah.
It'd be so fun.
Yes, and it's written by Dean Pitchford, stars Kevin Bacon, Laurie Singer, John Lithgow. A city teenager moves to a small town where rock music and dancing have been banned, and his rebellious spirit shakes up the populace. So you had never seen this, is that correct?
Yeah. So when you asked me to do this, I was like, oh, of course I've seen Footloose before because I know all the songs and it's so iconic.
Yeah.
And then I started watching it. I was like, I have not actually watched the whole movie, seen little clips here and there, on TV.
Sure.
But it was so fun to get to watch such an iconic movie with fresh eyes.
Yeah. I think because of the Utah pedigree, I had seen it. And I've seen the musical they did off of it. I've seen that a number of times. I like the musical well enough. I think it's kind of a silly story. I mean, that these people would allow themselves to be manipulated, controlled, and not dance. We got to stand up for the dancing. But I guess it is. I mean, in fairness, it is based on a true incident that happened in where is it? Let me find it. That in Elmore City, Oklahoma, the town had banned dancing since its founding in 1898 in an attempt to decrease the amount of heavy drinking. One advocate of the dancing ban was the Reverend from the nearby town of Hennepin, F.R. Johnson. He said, no good has ever come from a dance. If you have a dance, somebody will crash it, and they'll be looking for only two things, women and booze. When boys and girls hold each other and they get sexually aroused, you can believe what you want, but one thing leads to another. Because of the ban on dancing, the town had never held a prom. In February 1980, the junior class of Elmore City's high school made national news when they requested permission to hold a junior prom, and it was granted. The request to overturn the ban in order to hold the prom was met with 2-2 decision from the school board. And when the school board president, Raymond Lee, broke the tie with the words, "Let 'em dance." So mad props to Raymond Lee. Way to go.
Let him dance.
I mean, that sounds like, frankly, a better story than
Yeah,
this story.
I think so too.
But it just, I guess it just seems phenomenal to me that anybody in the United States of America would allow somebody to tell them that they can or cannot dance. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it does feel unbelievable. Although I want to say, like, my maybe hot take on this. Obviously, I think it's wrong to forbid kids from dancing. But there was a part of me also because I grew up in a small town with like not a lot to do, and there was a lot of like drug and alcohol deaths.
Mm-hmm.
Watching these kids play fast and loose with their lives, I was like, okay, you should be allowed to dance, but yeah, let's cut down. And I also don't want to shame people for having sex, like go for it. But I was like, maybe we should be careful about the drinking. Like, let's be careful about risking our lives.
Well, yeah, that was surprising to me.
It was wild, Rachel.
I hadn't seen it in a while, and I forgot about that crazy scene at the beginning when she's in between the cars.
Rachel,
straddling the cars.
I'm in the scene where she is standing in front of the train. I was like, I'm worried about her mental health, especially because finding out her brother died. Like, there was so much in this that I was like, your father is being too strict and shouldn't, should be kinder and, talk to you and allow these things. But when you're like, oh, I wasn't drinking, well, no, you were literally risking your life on the train tracks, which is way worse, girlfriend. Right. Like, come on, be careful.
Yeah, which I kind of, I guess, I think that it makes it certainly better than the musical, because the Broadway musical, it's just, they don't go to that kind of extreme place. Mm-hmm. But I think going to the extreme place in this, it actually like makes the whole thing like it just makes it less silly. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because with this, it's just like, I mean, and when you watch the play, you're just like, come on, who cares that people are dancing? Whereas like, that's the least of this guy's worries is his daughter dancing. I mean, oh my gosh, if you had any idea that she's straddling two cars on a busy road with incoming cars. I mean, she's not only is that crazy, but she's putting everybody else's life in jeopardy in that scene.
That scene, that's how I knew for sure that I was like, oh, I guess I haven't seen this movie, because my anxiety was through the roof. I also didn't realize that it was sorry, what is her name? Ariel.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was Ariel doing it, because like the beginning was so chaotic. So I would have obviously known, that it was her. Then I wouldn't have been like, well, she's not going to die. But just watching this, like, it felt like a death wish, and like there was no regard for human life, hers, the other car, the two cars that she was straddling between, and like you could see it on her friends' faces. Like, it was wild.
Yeah. That was. I really forgot how crazy she is.
Yeah,
she's nuts.
Yeah, she's nuts.
She needs help.
She's nuts. She really doesn't, like, it's one thing to be a rebellious teen, but like I don't think I've seen this depicted in a movie quite like this, with her almost seeming like she's like tempting fate.
Yeah. And it's very interesting that this was filmed in Utah, because not only obviously we have strong religious roots in Utah, but also we also have a very strong dance roots in Utah. One of the pioneers were known for having dances and for dancing. Like that, like I can wrap my brain around like being sort of faithful enough and like strong enough to like cross the plains or whatever if I had to. I think I could muster up enough like pioneer spirit. I could do it. What I can't imagine is going through a whole day of walking across the plains and then dancing. Stories, or like going hiking. There's stories of them like they would end and then they would go climb and go hiking, and I'm just like, are you insane?
Like, we did enough physical activity for the day, thank you very much, we're okay.
And one of the first buildings that was finished in Utah when they settled here was a theater. and dancing was a huge part of the early pioneers. It's just if you watch shows like So You Think You Dance or Dancing with the Stars, a lot of those pros are from Utah, or have Utah roots. And like the Huffs, Derek and Julian Huff, people like that, from Utah. And it's a huge, the BYU ballroom dance team, it won, they had like a 20-year run of winning the national champions. Like it's just a huge part. Ballet West is one of the premier ballet companies in the country. So we just have a strong tradition. And it's sometimes I feel it because I'm the world's worst dancer.
I don't believe that, Rachel.
I am really, I don't have natural rhythm. I really struggle. So it's not a strength. Let's put it that way.
You have many other talents.
I'm more like Willard in this movie.
But it's so good.
What I could relate to. But yeah, we have Ren. He's coming. He's new in town with his mom. His dad has left, and he's a good kid, but he is very independent. Yeah. And you have Ariel, the pastor's daughter, and that is kind of a bit of a joke of like the bishop's daughter, the reverend's daughter, or whatever. It's always the most
the one that wants to act out.
Yeah. But what did you think of Kevin Bacon and Laurie Singer? Do you think they had good chemistry?
Oh my gosh, I think Kevin Bacon is just darling in this. I thought their chemistry was incredible. Like it was interesting watching it, knowing that he was like 24 and I think she was like 21, like maybe a little younger than that, and being like, oh, these are like very, very young people, but I thought their chemistry was palpable, very intense. And getting to see Kevin Bacon in this like huge breakout role was really, really cool.
Yeah.
What did you think of their chemistry?
Yeah, I thought their chemistry was pretty good. It was fine. But I can see why he took off more than her. Like he had just such a charisma and screen personality.
Oh, yeah. Like another thing I didn't know about Footloose, I'm like, oh, he's doing gymnastics. Like I know he had, I read that he did have a stunt double and they tried to keep it a secret, but he did a lot of the stuff himself. And I was like, I love that this is a part of his like teen heartthrob in this movie, is that he's a gymnast. He's not lifting weights.
Right.
He's doing his gymnastics.
Yeah. I'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Elise Murray and her exciting book, Society Girl. Set in the mysterious world of Oxford University's secret societies, Society Girl follows Sam, a duke's estranged daughter, as she attempts to join the most famous club of them all, the Animos Society. Her final initiation challenge is simple. Find a man, convince him she's in love with him, and then break his heart in humiliating fashion. Hardened by her father's rejections, believing that the Animos Society is her key to his love and acceptance, Sam throws herself into making Daniel Best, her father's chauffeur and local musician, fall for her. But she never counted on falling in love with him right back. Fans of Colleen Hoover, Anna Hong, and Mia Sheridan will love Society Girl, a sweeping romance from best-selling novelist and screenwriter Elise Murray. Free for Kindle Unlimited users for a limited time. Go to elisemurray.com/novels/Society Girl for more information. Or you can use the affiliate link below. I don't know where these students find the time to this stuff. Like I was so busy in high school. I didn't have any time for all this.
I did not either. Yeah, you and I were not doing these sorts of things.
But yeah, that opening where she goes between the cars was just crazy. That was wild. That was wild. And so then we have Sarah Jessica Parker playing Rusty, a friend. She doesn't get that much to do. She's with Willard. They actually kind of expand that apart a little bit in the musical. It's one of my favorite songs in the musical, the song called Mama Says that Willard sings. It's a good one. And but yeah, she's good in her little part.
I loved seeing her like this with the brown hair and when she's dancing and she's trying to get Willard to dance, I was like, you are so cute. It was fun to see Sarah Jessica Parker. We've seen her like play like the va 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 voom and like the character that's sometimes a little bit snobby or nasty or flirty and all these things. And she played a little nerdy girl,
like
a
little bit of a tomboy. We don't usually see her in that. Yeah, it's interesting because her start was in musical theater, was a dance start. I mean, of course, her first role on Broadway was being Annie, and on Broadway, and then I don't know if it was her first role or it was certainly one of her first roles in a movie was Girls Just Want to Have Fun, which we'll do one of these days.
We have to,
which I love. And then this, and it would be fun to get her back, like doing a musical of some kind. I would love to see that.
That would be a blast. I want to ask you, do you know she wasn't in the end number? Do you know why?
I don't know why. Because she's continued to do, I mean, Broadway and musical theater. I mean, she has those roots. Of course, she was in Once Upon a Mattress, and on Broadway, I think she originated that role.
Yeah.
And they're doing a revival. Did you know that?
No. Who's
it was Sutton Foster.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. I forget if it's at Lincoln Center or somewhere around there. Anyway, which I'm really excited about because I think it's the one when people say they're doing Into the Woods, I just think, why not do Once Upon a Mattress? They're very similar.
Yeah, especially if you want a nice ensemble cast. Yeah. Once Upon a Mattress we did that in high school and it was so fun. Yeah, and I just really love that show. It's cute. It's really, really cute.
Yeah. But anyway, I would love to see her back doing some kind of musical or dance or whatever.
Yeah,
that would be fun. But it starts out. Ren suggests they read Slaughterhouse-Five, and it's like, oh, that's an evil book. So they're banning books, which of course is still a thing, and that you see more and more now. But they're just trying so hard to control their teens, and of course, it leads to this completely out of control behavior on the part of Ariel and the other teens. And I thankfully don't have children, but I'm sure it's difficult to know, like, where do you draw that line of trying to guide them, trying to set rules, that will help them as opposed to control them. And I don't know. I think it's tricky. It's tough.
Yeah, I have a lot of empathy for parents who have to do that. And like, I just think some of it is so misguided. Like Slaughterhouse-Five, I remember reading it in high school and I was like, oh, I love Kurt Vonnegut. And it was like dark but I was a really like well-behaved kid. And it was sort of like a way for me to do something a little bit edgier. And I think you need to let your kids have room to do stuff like that won't be dangerous behavior. And I understand that like after his son passed away, like that, I'm sure that rocked John Lithgow's character to the core. Of course it did.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is setting up the rule instead of addressing the actual like concern, right? So he says that listening to classical music is okay because it doesn't confuse people's minds and bodies. Well, it's not the dancing that you're really objecting to. It's not the music that you're really objecting to. You're objecting to the sexuality. Yeah. And then she calls him out on it. She says, what, is it because of fornication, and in the church? And so that's the thing that you actually have to, it's like you're too scared and uncomfortable talking about these things with your teens. And so instead you just set this rule that will keep them like 2 steps away from that. And I mean, I grew up in a very traditional, religion and where there were a lot of rules. But my parents were actually pretty good about not creating problems where problems don't exist.
Yeah.
That, for instance, we never had a curfew as a teen. because we didn't stay out late. There's no reason to set some rule. And so if like there was going to be a cast party or something like that, where we would be out a little bit later, they would know about it and we would talk about it and it would be fine. If we were like staying out late all the time, then yeah, my parents would probably have a curfew. But there's no reason to set is in this way to sort of try to like protect them. That's just creating problems, and it's not actually addressing the true concern that you have about their safety and their mental, physical, spiritual health.
Yeah, that's very well said. And like, I think if there would be more transparency between the parents and the kids and some more humility, I think, they could get to the root. It's like, I'm really afraid to not protect you because I feel like I didn't protect your brother and now he's dead. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Which of course it's not their fault that he died, but like, it's all these things of like really trying to get vulnerable and transparent is a lot better than being like, no dancing.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like easier to, it's hard to have those like difficult conversations. And also like it gives more agency to the teen, which is scary, but it's important. I mean, it's why we're all down here trying to, is that we're here to test out our agency, to make choices, and parents can only control so much, of what people do. She's with this guy, Chuck, and he's like a total bully, terrible guy. Why is she even interested in him at all?
Yeah, he's so mean. And then later on, we see everything he does to her. But when she comes to tell Kevin Bacon, like, oh, meet him, by the tractors or whatever. And he's like, why do you send you? And she's like, I volunteered. It's like, no, yeah, you volunteered because you think he's hot.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then we have the tractor race.
That was unhinged.
Yeah.
Again,
really
another thing where I was like, someone needs to protect these kids.
Yeah. Yeah. See him, he gets in this fight with his uncle, because that's where they're staying, with his uncle, and that he says, stop fathering me, which is again another tricky parenting situation, that I'm sure if like one of my nieces was living with me, like that would be very difficult to figure out like where that line is and it would be hard.
It'd be really hard. Really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's when he gets mad, and then we get the angry warehouse dance.
Which, don't you just love an angry warehouse dance? I know I do.
Yeah, it's iconic.
Yeah, iconic, exactly.
Yeah, and she shows up, and do you want to kiss me? I get the feeling you've been kissed a lot. I'm afraid I'd suffer by comparison.
I thought that line was really cute.
Yeah.
He's so charming.
A little judgy, but
well, here's the thing. I took it as like, rather than him shaming her, him being like, oh, I'm just like, I'm a loser.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he was bragging to his friend in the beginning, like, oh yeah, and I did this with a girl, and he's like, seriously? He's like, no, I didn't. I thought that was funny. But yeah, it does. I probably wouldn't like a guy saying that to me.
Yeah. And it turns out she's like applied to all these colleges that her dad doesn't even know about. And so that's where the major problem is that the dad has created a situation where everything is rebellious. Everything is, I mean, come on, she's applying to colleges. Like, it's just exhausting. How do you even keep up with it all?
Yeah. And it's a little bit like, girl, I love that you have dreams of getting out of this town because that's what feels right for you. Maybe don't get yourself killed in your last year of school then.
Yeah. Yeah. That would help.
Yeah, that would help.
And yeah, this is where you get the scene with her standing in front of the train, and she's looking for these adrenaline experiences.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, girl, go find a bungee jump or something. Like, stop with this.
Stop with this. We're not. You're right. She's chasing this adrenaline, and then she puts Ren's life.
Yeah, that's the
in
thing.
Danger
And
too, because what?
It could be dangerous even to the train. Like if they're
100%.
Yeah. And I remember when my cousin was in rehab, they did actually, one of the things they did is they were trying to teach them that they could get sort of rushes from different things that didn't have to be the drugs. And that they took her they went bungee jumping.
Wow.
And I remember,
she
and
like
then
it?
yeah. And then they actually did a little like play thing, because and I guess it's something that sometimes they'll do with like rehab is we'll put on a play, and that adrenaline from like doing the performance and stuff like is similar, like, and I always thought like that would make a really good like movie.
That's a
Of
great
like putting
movie.
on the
Yes.
for the people coming out and putting on the play, and that would make a very like really good story.
Yeah, that's fascinating to
Yeah.
me. Like whether it's like a fictional story or like even like a documentary, I would watch that
Yeah.
journey because the
Mhm.
adrenaline, like I was never very good at sports, but I have felt like actually doing theater has been the closest that I can get to like that adrenaline rush that people talk about with sports.
Mhm.
So that's really interesting that and how smart of them in rehab to not be like, no, don't chase adrenaline rushes, but like chase them in a safe way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we need to get Ariel in a like play.
She just needs theater.
So then they decide to go and go to this country western bar, and it's a fun scene. Willard can't dance.
Yeah.
And we get a ton of iconic songs in this. In the movie, of course, there's your Footloose and your other things, but they have "Hurt So Good," John Mellencamp,
So good.
"Waiting for a Girl Like You." I think that's Richard Marx, and then Footloose.
Let's hear it for the boy.
Yeah. Yes. And that's when we see Rusty dancing, and she's dancing with this guy, and Willard stops him and gets in the fight, and so that's fun.
I was funny because like it was interesting to watch this movie as an adult and wondering if I would have felt differently like as like a teenager watching it, because I was like, oh my gosh, too much violence and they're risking their lives. Like I just got all, but I think maybe not, because I've always had a lot of anxiety. So I think even if I was 17 watching this, I'd be like, ah.
The truth is that I doubt they would be allowed into this bar.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think you'd have to show ID.
100%. Yeah.
For this kind of country western bar. And so I doubt they would even be allowed in there, but it works for the story.
It works.
It's across state lines.
So. Yeah, exactly. We'll take it.
And we find out that her brother died in this accident, and she's when we get this fight between her and her dad, and when she says she's not a virgin, and he strikes her.
Yeah,
it's like shocking.
This whole thing, I was like, I hate that she's saying this. I hate that he hit her. The whole thing was just so like upsetting.
Yeah, and he says, "I've never hit anyone in my life." And he says, "It's not that we don't talk; it's just that sometimes people run out of things to say."
Oh yeah, when he was talking to Diane Wiest, I thought she was incredible in this role. Where she's good. Like, I've stood by you for 20 years, and I've admired all the work you've done as a preacher, but the one-on-one, like, you're not so great at.
Yeah, it's the one-on-one where you need the work. Yeah, she's such a good actress. Oh my gosh,
incredible.
Yeah, I think she won an Oscar. I think she's an Oscar winner. Yeah, let's see here. She's won 2 Oscars.
2 to say for what?
Yes, she won for Hannah and Her Sisters and Bullets Over Broadway. So Woody Allen was her.
Woody Allen was her. Yeah.
was her guy. She's won 2. She's won an Emmy, so she just needs to get she just needs to get a Tony, and
like, hey girl.
Yeah, but she'll have her EGOT. But she's great, and she's really good in this. That scene especially. And it feels like that marriage is very, very, very like in that marriage is not in a great place.
Yeah, and it's almost like she will stand by him. And I'm also they say that it's very difficult when people lose a child. Like the rate of divorce is higher after someone has lost a child, and I'm sure the kind of stress that puts on a marriage. So yeah, it does not seem like that marriage is in a good place. Another scene I really liked is when she gives Ariel the corsage. I thought that
that
was
was a
so
nice scene.
beautiful and just lovely. And um, yeah, she's so good in this. There's so many incredible actors in this movie.
Yeah. And it does elevate it. It really does, the quality of the performances. And then she breaks up Chuck's car, Ariel, and then he beats her up. So she's just had not a good week. This has been bad. She gets struck by her dad. She gets beat up by her boyfriend. Not good.
Watching him beat her was really hard. Like, I actually didn't think that's what he was going to do. I thought he was just going to be like, why are you hitting my car? You're crazy. And then like not throw her, but like toss her off and then just leave it at that. But like that was really scary to watch.
Yeah. And so then she gives Ren the music box, and then they get together. And he's going before the city council, and she's underlined all the verses about dancing.
He was amazing during this. I was like, you preach, sir. You preach.
It's true. I mean, but the Bible does say it's a time to dance.
Yes.
I mean,
it was beautiful.
Right there. Yeah.
Right there.
Sing and dance before the Lord.
And I think that, it's this thing of like, there are so many reasons that you could give why this is wrong, but going in from the angle, the religious aspect, because that's what appeals to them, I thought was really smart. It's like a way to get on someone's level.
Mm-hmm. I think what matters is that it's something that gives people joy of the dancing. And that's what God is a fan of. God is a fan of us being joyful and happy. And where the limitations, I guess, make sense is the things that stop us from feeling joy, right? I mean, that's why we are, obviously we don't murder, we don't steal, we don't, if you are talking about things like not having sex before marriage and things like that, I guess you could say that could bring us joy, but it could also bring a lot of unhappiness. Depending. And so that's where those laws kind of are trying to help people live a good life and be happy, as opposed to this, where these rules just tend to be limiting people from feeling joy. And that's the main problem. And so instead of like talking about it and figuring out a way that we can trust in the youth, that that it's just like it's just this arbitrary rule. And
the dancing that they're doing, like especially this last number at the dance, it is so fun and joyful, and like this adrenaline rush that she's not having to stand in front of a train then, and they're not having to drink themselves into oblivion, or you know what I mean? Like it's very fun and wholesome.
Yeah, it's just something to be happy about.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
He gives the speech before the council, and then his mom has lost her job because of it, and he says it's our way of celebrating life. And so they say, can we have the dance in basin across the track? They'll think about it. And then this is actually where she tells her dad that she's not a virgin.
Yeah.
She has this conversation, and he finds out that they're burning the books at the library. And this is, when you burn all of these, what are you going to do then? Satan isn't in these books. It's in here, in our heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Ren talks to the pastor, and then she says, Ariel says, I just don't know that I believe in everything you believe, but I believe in you.
Mm-hmm.
That was very sweet.
Very, very sweet. And I think that that's the whole thing, like with any relationships, that not everyone is going to believe the same things, but having respect for people as people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he stands up before the congregation. He says, I'm standing up here today. I'm standing up here before you today with a troubled heart. You see, my friends, I've always insisted on taking responsibility for your lives. But I'm really like a first-time parent who makes mistakes and tries to learn from them. And like that parent, I find myself at that moment when I have to decide, do I hold on or do I trust you to yourselves? Let go and hope that you understood at least some of my lessons. If we don't start trusting our children, how will they ever become trustworthy? I'm told that the senior class at the high school has gotten use of the warehouse in Basin for the purpose of putting on a senior dance. Please join me to pray to the Lord to guide them in their endeavors.
Like, that's a beautiful speech, testimony, preach, like preach. Like, yes, that's where we should be coming from.
Yeah. And that is when I was using the example of like my parents not having a curfew. My parents trusted us because we hadn't done anything to make them not trust us. Yeah. There's no reason of creating problems where problems don't exist.
Yeah.
And so one thing my mom would always say, she says, if you're somewhere and you need an out, don't be afraid to make me the bad person. Be like, my mom won't, and my mom won't allow me to do this or whatever. She's like, don't be afraid. So she's like, I'll be the bad one.
I'll be the bad one. Just let me be the bad guy. My mom was really strict. So like, I remember I wasn't like allowed in cars. I wasn't allowed to do a lot. Mm-hmm. So I like, it wasn't me just saying it. It was like, I'm not allowed to.
Right. Yeah. So then they have the dance at the Lehigh Roller Mills. It's still ongoing. If you look up on the website, they still sell products, and you can get cool. Like muffin mixes and stuff. Lehigh Roller Mills, and that's when her mom has the corsage, and it says it's actually from your dad. This is really sweet. Yeah. And then Ren picks her up. You're beautiful, and of course nobody is dancing. That's the ironic thing, is that they think that it's all going to be this like, sexual awakening or whatever.
No, it's awkward.
Everybody's terrified.
Yeah, which is the way most school dances are. So just get on the dance floor and do it.
Yeah,
dance, not anything else.
And like, we're almost dancing, and so we get this whole scene with Chuck threatening Willard and Rusty, and there's this fight, and then they end with the Footloose dancing scene.
And what a dancing scene. We have kids moonwalking. We have like people doing splits in the air.
Yeah.
Like, you can't watch it and not want to dance.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So 2 of the songs from Footloose were nominated for Best Song. This was a busy year, 1985, for Best Song, because you had Footloose, and you had Let's Hear It for the Boy nominated, plus Ghostbusters theme was nominated. Yeah, and Against All Odds, which is Phil Collins' song.
Yeah.
Take a look at me now. That song. But the one that won is a song I've never even heard of.
What is it?
It's called The Woman in Red. And well, that's the movie. It's called The Woman in
Oh.
Red, and it's a song called "I Just Called to Say." Oh, I just called to say I love you. That's the song.
Oh,
So I have heard of that. Okay,
Still, but
so
not as good as the rest.
yeah, so I just called to say I love you from The Woman in Red, which I've never heard of that movie in my life.
No, I have never heard of that movie either.
But yeah, pretty good. I just called to say I love you, Against All Odds, Footloose, Let's Hear It for the Boy, and Ghostbusters. Pretty good year.
Like we know these now. Like they are iconic songs of the 80s. Wow.
So yeah. It was a good year at the Oscars in general because I mean the 80s is weak when it comes to the Oscars, in my opinion. Most of those movies are not good. But this was the year of Amadeus, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. And it's so good. And they had of course winners from Amadeus, but there's also The Killing Fields. Your Sally Field won for Places in the Heart, which I've never seen that, but
she's so good though. Sally Field's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And just Amadeus is outstanding, and The Killing Fields is really good. It's brutal, but it's good. And so yeah, it was a good year for the Oscars and a good year for Best Song.
Yeah, my gosh, those 80s tunes, keep them pumping.
Yeah. What is this? I didn't know there was a sequel to 2001. 2010, the year we make contact. What on earth?
Oh.
Wait, I've never heard of this movie. It's got John Lithgow, Roy Scheider, Helen Mirren. What?
Helen Mirren?
2010, a sequel to 2001.
What?
I have never heard of this in my life. Director Peter Hyams. What? It was nominated for visual effects along with Ghostbusters, and then the winner was Temple of Doom.
Oh my gosh.
Random.
That is random.
Anyway, so it was a good year. It was also the year of Purple Rain. I can't believe that none of those songs got nominated.
Oh my gosh, because that is iconic.
Wow. That's crazy. Anyway, so it was an interesting year, but it was fun to see Sarah Jessica Parker. She's cute in this, and of course Kevin Bacon. And yeah, it was better than I remembered because it does go some pretty dark places. And so if you've only seen the musical or just you haven't given it a shot for a while, I say give it a watch. It's over on, you can watch it on Max. And I think it's a pretty good little movie that tries to take on some themes of parenting and religion and all of those things, and also be about dance.
Yeah, it's really fun, and the acting, it's like with these iconic actors, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. Well, very good. Let us know what you think of this movie. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And Jax, where can people find you?
Jacqueline Collier on Instagram.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media on iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also, check out City Girls Pod on Twitter and also the Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group, which is a lot of fun, and our merch store. So take a look at that. You can get City Girls Pod merch. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to y'all later.